Hey there, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Daniel.
We're the Fountain Pen Guys.
Let's talk pens.
Today, we are going to take a look at one of the great starter pens. We've already reviewed the Monteverde Monza. This is the TWSBI Eco. We're going to take a few minutes to talk about what these pens look like, what they feel like, to give you a writing sample, and then we will talk about how we feel about them. How would you begin describing the TWSBI Eco, Daniel?
Sturdy is the first word that comes to mind. It's another one of those that it feels like it's not going to come apart on you. There's a lot of plastic on this, right? So if you've never held one, don't get any misconceptions. This is a plastic. There's a lot of plastic on it, but it's very sturdy. There's no creaking or rattling when you play around with it. It's very sturdy.
Yeah, and TWSBI's fairly consistent about that. I've never gotten a TWSBI pen that I thought to myself, man, this pen feels like junk. And they're very well put together. So when we talk about the pen from top to bottom, it's got this little red finial on the top of the pen. And then the clip, how would you describe that clip, Daniel?
It's kind of modern. It has the open space right in the middle. It isn't too. There's nothing special about it, but it's very practical.
Yeah, very practical. Maybe a little minimalistic, and maybe that's another good way to describe this pen. There's a lot of minimalism to this pen. Well, then it's got a band that a glossy steel band that says TWSBI on one side and says Eco on the other, and says Taiwan underneath the words Eco. And then when you get to the barrel, you get to the really cool part about a TWSBI Eco.
Yeah, completely a demonstrator. You can see all the inner workings of it, and it's just you just stare at it. I mean, even if you're not writing with this pen, you're staring at it. You're looking at the all the internal parts, and the coolest thing is you can look at your ink sloshing around in there.
Absolutely, that is what turned me on. There's a long time where demonstrators were my favorite kind of pens, and the reason. It's fun to watch your ink slosh around. Now, one thing you'll notice, and we'll make sure and get a picture of this to show you, but Daniel has got some, we both have Monteverde Sweet Life inks in our pens, and he has got the Strawberry Shortcake, and I have was it the birthday cake? Is that what I've got in mine? The birthday cake,
yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's purple, his is red. And if you can find a light, like almost a highlighter type color, they look really cool because they're translucent. And the light shines through them as opposed to this purple. It shines through where you can see, where the ink is not, it shines through, but it doesn't shine through the other part. And so that's really fun. I like to keep like a bright orange or a bright red or a bright green in mine most of the time. But so then you come down here to the end. And the other big deal is this is a piston filler.
Right.
And that's what makes it differentiates it from a lot of beginner pens. It is a piston filler. What is a piston filler to somebody who's new to pens?
Sure. So the piston filler is one of the biggest things about it is it's incorporated into the body of the pen. So with the cartridge converter, you're taking that out of the pen and either filling it with a syringe or putting or taking the barrel off and then dipping it into your bottle of ink. With a piston filler, you don't have to take the pen apart. You just twist, and it brings the ink in there, and it's so all the things are internal. You got to keep the piston greased up, so there's a little bit of maintenance, but it holds a lot of ink.
A lot of ink, and
you don't have to take the pen apart, which is really nice.
Sure. Yeah, those are really nice realities. And you don't have to take the pen apart. And that could mean, and we're going to get to this in the things we like and don't like, but that could mean it could be harder to clean. A cartridge converter pen, if you have a bulb syringe, you pull that cartridge or converter out, you stuff it in the end of the section, you squirt it right through the nib. And you can't do that with at least as easily, with a piston filler. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. When we talk about what we like and don't like, we'll talk about the accessories that come with a TWSBI that help with that process. And then, of course, at the end, on the other end, you have the knob that actuates the piston. And so you want to make sure and not twist that knob as you're sitting. If you're a pin fiddler, you want to make sure not twist that knob as you're sitting fiddling with your pen, which I've nearly done several times and nearly made a mess in my life. But so that's the outside of the pin. It's kind of what they look like. Anything I missed there, Daniel?
So just to touch up on this, there are different years on the models of this, and there are some differences other than just cosmetic differences. There's differences in the shape of the ring on the cap. And I think
is yours newer or older?
I think mine's older.
Okay.
Yeah, I think mine's older, and I think there was an issue with cracking on these lids initially, and so TWSBI. One of the as he points out to the crack on his. But one of the things about TWSBI that people have mixed experiences with is the level of the way TWSBI interacts with feedback from customers. So I remember following the feedback from customers saying, "Hey, I'm seeing some cracking on these pens," and then a new model would come out, which would address that feedback. And so I just thought that was really interesting that TWSBI is that involved, or at that point when I bought this one, they were really involved with.
Sure. Well, I think we'll get into a little bit more of that what we like and don't like about them, because
Correct.
we've got some. I definitely have some customer service interaction with TWSBI that I want to talk about in that. So let's take a minute now. That's kind of one other difference. You notice mine is a transparent lid and a transparent filler knob, and Daniel's is black.
Right.
And once more, when we get to what we like and don't like, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So a lot in the end piece of this video, so hang around for that. Now we're going to show you a writing sample.
Okay, so now that we've switched to the close-up camera, let's just take a quick look at some size comparisons here. If you're looking to see how big it is compared to some other pens you might have. So this is a Lamy Safari, which a lot of people have. You can see it's just about the same length there. Yeah, and everybody's written with one of these, right? So there's just a ballpoint, one of these big sticks. You can tell how that goes. And then for those of you who can walk into an office supply store, you can find these pretty readily. It's just a cross fountain pen, and you can kind of see how it is compared to one of these. So if you wanted to go into a store and just pick one of these up, you can tell it's much thinner, and it's a different size than this one. So it's kind of a chunky pen, right? But it's not obtrusive. It's not way too big in your hand when you're writing. So speaking of writing, let's get to the writing sample. Now, as you can tell, this has that strawberry shortcake ink in it, and it's translucent. It's such a cool effect. And so that's fun to look at when you're going through there. Yeah, you can tell right there. So, once again, this is on Rhodia paper, and this one is the broad or bold, depending on which website you're on, nib on this TWSBI here.
Yeah, for some reason, TWSBI sometimes refers to what most fountain pens call broad as bold.
You can definitely tell it's a lubricated ink. And so with the TWSBI nib, it gives a little bit of, it's not like writing on ice, right? Like you would think of super smooth. It does give you a little bit of positive feedback. And with lubricated ink, it keeps it from being unpleasant. And so we've got, this is, if you've got headphones on, you probably heard that. You know, it sings a little bit, the nib on the paper, and this ink doesn't get in the way of that.
Can you squeeze any flecks out of it?
There's no pressure right there, and then just a little bit. I mean, it's just barely.
It's unintelligible.
Right. But you can tell there's a little bit of shading here. When I was playing around with my Tomoe River paper, you could definitely tell, especially when doing a square like this and coloring it in, it would be darker on the outlines, and so it had this really cool ghosting effect on it. It was kind of neat. But anyway, so this is in a broad nib. Now we've got the other one, the other pen, and this one's in a fine, and this one has the birthday cake in it. Now you have a wide range of fine nibs from different companies, right? How does the TWSBI fine compare to, like, let's say, a Sailor?
You know, I think they're probably pretty similar. I write just about every day with both of these, with a Sailor fine and with the TWSBI fine. And honestly, even the extra fine doesn't seem that much different. The brand that seems to make a big difference is Platinum. The Platinum fine nibs are about an extra fine in either this or the Sailor, and so they're significantly different. And of course, the nice part about that is with less ink, you have fewer issues on lousy paper. I have a journal that has lousy paper in it, and or a planner, and it's a really fancy planner, but it has really lousy paper, and so it's really nice to have to write with a fine in that, because it doesn't feather all over the place. Now this one will pick up a little variation.
Oh yeah.
But that's another big note, is the finer your nib is, the more potential it has to flex just a little bit.
Right. And the disclaimer, you don't want to push it. You don't want to spring it and mess up your pen. But, as you can tell, there is a little bit right there. And
Or do. Just don't call and complain.
Right. It's not going to be covered under any kind of warranty. So it's... These nibs, they don't take a lot of maintenance, and so we mentioned a little bit before taking them apart to clean them. You don't have to do it. I mean, you can just work the piston, get water in there, and flush it out, and it doesn't take that many flushes to get it completely clean. Being demonstrators, you can tell when they're clean, which is nice. But if you do want to take them apart, all of these come with a little wrench, a little plastic wrench. Some of the more expensive models, do they still come with the...
The Ecos come with plastic.
Yeah.
And the fancy ones come with metal.
Right,
the
with
more
the metal
expensive.
wrench. Yeah. And then a little thing of grease so that you can lube it up once you put it back together.
I've only tried to use that once, and I couldn't get it out of the bottle.
It is kind of tough. But So if you're the kind of person that one little ring somewhere here will drive you crazy, you can take these apart and get in there with a paper towel or a Q-tip or something and clean them out. And this is great, which will add, longevity-wise, it'll add years to these pens, because you can get in there, clean them, dry them, and then store them. You don't really want to store a pen that still has some moisture in it.
All right, now let's take a minute and talk about what we like and don't like. What is something that jumps out at you, Daniel, that you like or don't like about TWSBI?
So the thing I like about it is the user experience. It's easy to fill up with your ink. It gives a pretty consistent writing experience. And then when you're done and you're ready to clean it, it's super easy to clean.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, just a few minutes ago, I switched out from some Sailor gentle apricot ink to the birthday cake ink from Monteverde. And when I did, I told Daniel, I said I'd forgotten how easy these were to clean. It took about 5 pumps of the piston, and it was clean. So yeah, that's a definite plus. I prefer cartridge converters because I run my ink out every week or so. But man, this was easy enough to clean. It really didn't bother me.
Right.
Now, on the colors. So I thought when I got this, I'd really like a transparent lid. But what you'll see when I take pictures of this is there is a little bit of orange from my Sailor Orange underneath the inner cap. And that's not a problem. You can take it out, you can clean it, but that's kind of a pain in the neck. I would rather just, and maybe sometime we'll show you how to do that. It's a very easy process, but it's not as easy as just refilling the pen. Daniel with his black lid, which by the way I think looks a little classier than a transparent lid too. That just is an opinion thing. Mm-hmm. But notice, you don't notice any other color on the inner cap of this pen.
So funny story, when I bought this pen, I bought it with, at the same time I bought a bottle of Liberty's Elysium, the Noodler's ink.
Right.
And so I think there is a ring of Liberty's Elysium in there, but you can't see it, so it doesn't matter.
We'll do an episode on Noodler's inks. If you don't have Noodler's inks, I would encourage you to do some homework on Noodler's inks before you get Noodler's inks. The safest bet is stick with inks made by pen manufacturing companies. TWSBI, by the way, has a new set of ink that I haven't picked up yet, but they have their own set of ink now that everybody seems to be really happy with. So the filling, the cleaning, awesome. Okay? Something, and this is a plus and a minus. So one negative about TWSBIs is, as I pointed out a moment ago, there's a crack in my lid here. I also have a TWSBI VAC 700R, and that lid has cracked. And it's a little frustrating to have a pen that a lid cracks. Here's the really cool part though. This is a $30 pen, Eco, $30, $35, somewhere in that price range. The VAC 700R is a $70 pen. When my lid cracked on my VAC 700R, I sent TWSBI an email. They've got a support email that's easy to find on the internet. I sent them an email. They said, no problem. PayPal is $5 for shipping and handling. We will send you a brand new lid. And that's what they did. They took great care of me. I was very, very satisfied. Now, I've seen some people online on Fountain Pen Network. I've been in a thread and I've commented on a thread about TWSBI service. And there were some complaints about, well, why would I want to spend $5 more fixing a part that shouldn't have broken in the first place? I understand that. Hey, if you feel like a $70 pen shouldn't break, that's fine. And maybe it's because my fountain pen tastes have got more expensive. Right. You know, when you're buying $100 or $200 fountain pens, all of a sudden $5 to have a cap replaced isn't that big a deal. Right. Especially since I own a Sailor 1911 large that this past summer spent 17 weeks shipping overseas, and then I paid them $35 to put an inner cap inside the cap when the pen wasn't even broken. It just needed an inner cap that you could stick in with your pinky finger. So I guess maybe it's perspective. Right. And if you don't want to pay $5 shipping to have something replaced, I would tell you stick with the less expensive TWSBI pens. And if they break, feel free to throw them away and get a different one. Right. $30, $35 for a pen that is, and this is one of the words, reliable is a word I'd use to describe TWSBIs. The other word I would use is fun. This is just a fun pen. It is just a fun pen. And they come in a lot of fun colors. These Ecos especially, some of the other models, they don't work very hard on different colors. 580, I guess, the 580 AL especially. Right. There's a little bit different story. Yeah. They work hard on that also. But it's a, $55 pen?
Yeah,
is that what those go?
It's the next step up.
Yeah, it's actually, well, it's 1.5 because the 580 and then the 580 AL. Right. So there's actually that step. But yeah, it's a fun pen. Anything else that you like or don't like, Daniel?
So I'll start with the dislike. So the finial, it's on there, which is cool. But if you do have the more expensive models, they'll have a classier looking. This is plastic, right?
Plastic.
It's plastic, and like I said before, there's a lot of plastic on here, and so. It just, when you have this one side by side with other TWSBIs, I mean, there's a marked difference. But granted, you are paying considerably less.
Almost twice as much for the nicer pens.
Exactly. Now, the other thing on a practical note, on the inside of these caps, there's a lot of that exposed this metal material here, this plastic, whatever it is, painted over plastic or whatever. And so if you're not careful when you clean these and you wash them out, if you're not careful about drying them properly, they start corroding.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't
Yeah,
heard that
and
issue.
so that's a big issue. And I mean, but when I first got this pen, it was my everyday pen, and I carried it everywhere, and I had it in my pocket, and it hasn't cracked, which is a testament to, I don't know if it's just mine or this model version, but it's been great. I haven't had the cracking issues, but I've heard all the horror stories of people
Sure.
where they crack and things. So
Sure.
so that's a dislike. From an ergonomic standpoint, the grip section has these little modules that come out here, and I guess it serves to help your fingers from not sliding too far down and getting into the feed and the nib itself, because it is kind of a narrow grip. So those help, and I like them. I've heard people that don't like them. They say they're intrusive. They say it hurts after a while. I don't have that issue. I like it, and it keeps you from getting into the threads
Sure.
up higher on the grip.
Sure.
But the best thing about this pen in terms of the user experience is how people notice it. And they're like, what is that? The funny thing is some people think it's a vape. Like their first reaction is, I didn't know you were a vapor. I'm not. It's a pen. And then we start talking about pens. And then I opened it up and it's a fountain pen, and then they're like, wow, it's it's like different levels of conversation starters. But it is just a pen that when I first had it, I carried around everywhere, and it didn't feel like I was sacrificing the writing experience for the practicality of it.
We haven't even talked about the nibs. So these nibs are JoWo German nibs. Almost, 70% of the pens on the market, regardless of price, are JoWo German nibs.
Right.
They are fantastic nibs. In my opinion, as somebody who's used a lot of fountain pens now, I kind of get bored of JoWo nibs, but it's a quality boredom. It's if you get into a car that's a nice car every day, you long to drive other nice cars sometimes. And so I like some other brands that have their own nibs, but these are great nibs. I don't think you'll have any complaint about that. Just a nice nib. So nice, good pen, quality pen, fun pen, and a pen that really will give you a chance to enjoy the fountain pen hobby. Thank you guys so much for taking a few minutes to watch this little video on the TWSBI Eco.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't mentioned.
Oh.
And it goes for all our videos. We've been collecting pens now for a few years.
I've been to 3 pen shows.
Yeah, 3 pen shows. So
once a year.
And I was collecting a little bit before that. So less than 5 years though for me. And we've built these collections over time. These are our own pens. So we haven't had anybody send us pens for review or anything like that, right?
Right.
These are just from basic personal experience over years. And that allows us the flexibility to really tell you what we think about them, right? So,
and most of our pens we love. And so most of our reviews, we're going to say, hey, we really like this about this pen. And there'll be some things we say, I don't like this about this pen, but I really like this pen. Mm-hmm. And every pen has a little bit different flavor.
Right.
And so the flavor of this one is reliable, easy to clean, pretty fun.
Yeah.
And except for the cracking issue, I actually think this one cracked because I abused it. I think I set something heavy on top of it. I think I set a table on top of my pen bag because I also cracked a platinum lid in that same time period. So anyway, this so fun pen.
Yeah, I think bottom line, if you wanted to get into a piston filler pen, but you look at the prices of the other piston fillers and you're like, I don't know if I want it. I'm not convinced yet that that's what I'd like. This is a great pen to go with, because then you get that day-to-day experience of having a piston filler without the sticker shock.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes to watch our video, and we look forward to seeing you again soon with an EEC review. Will be as the next thing on the docket.